Hello everyone, I'm Laura Dale, and I'm a 28-year-old trans woman on the autism spectrum, and thank you so much for letting me speak today at Trans Pride Brighton. It really means a lot. The theme for this year's Trans Pride Brighton is #Won'tBeErased, and it's an incredibly important theme. When you look at the full version of it that Trans Pride Brighton have used this year, it's trans rights won't be erased, and considering the state of proposed rollbacks for trans rights right now, it's a really important theme. But I wanted to take the idea of won't be erased in a slightly different direction today. I think it's really important that everyone in the non-cisgender community talks more about the things that bring us joy, and hopefully if we do that, we can help people outside of our community to see that our lives aren't entirely defined by the things we're getting away from, but often they're defined by the wonderful things we get to do in the future, the wonderful things we get to become, the wonderful things we get to experience. A lot of the time, whether it's the trans community or outside people talking about the trans community, a lot of our stories do focus on getting away from negativity. I know I'm guilty of the same thing. I know that I'm guilty of talking about my story in terms of the things that I was trying to get away from. When people used to ask me what it's like to be trans or what my experience has been like, I would focus on medical gatekeeping. I would focus on getting away from dysphoria. I'd focus on things like the fact that if I get married right now, I'd have to be a Mr. rather than a Mrs. because of some paperwork hoops I haven't jumped through yet. It's really understandable to talk about these things because they are things that affect us day to day. They are things we're struggling with, things that need to be better. But it's really easy to fall into the trap of that being the only thing we talk about in our stories. And there is so much positivity and joy in so many of our stories that is just bursting out at the seams that wants to be shared. When I talk about my transition today, I try and focus on talking about the times that it brought a smile back to my life. The times where my transition made me a happier, more joyful person. I remember really vividly the first time I realised that estrogen hormone replacement therapy was working for me. I hadn't really seen any physical changes in my body. I'd been on them for a couple of months, and my first experience was really personal. It was really, just for me. I ran down the stairs really fast and I felt my breasts jiggle. And I know that that's a really silly thing, but it was for me. It was something that I felt, something that told me, you know how your first puberty, you really didn't get on board with it, you felt miserable the whole time, never felt exciting? This one's going to be different. This one feels exciting and positive. That was a feeling I held on to so much in early transition because I actively liked that my body was changing. And, it's true. It is true that I didn't like how my body changed the first time. That was a negative experience, but the positive experience that came after, that's the one I try and focus on. I have a really strong memory of a morning a couple of years into transition where me and my wife-to-be, we just lay in bed doing silly gruff voices at each other. Because I didn't like my voice being low when that was my everyday voice, when it was how people perceived me day to day, but I'd finally become comfortable enough to go, yeah, you know what? I have quite a low voice register, I can make some characters out of this, and it was really fun to not push that down, not pretend it didn't exist in me and go, that's a character, it's something I can pull out at parties, it's not something that is me every day, and getting able to separate something that used to be part of my life and go, it's still there, it's a party trick now rather than my everyday. That was a really wonderful experience. It was so affirming. It helped me to feel like I was valid. It helped me to put aside who I used to be and to embrace who I was now, and it was a wonderful experience. I remember joining an all-female roller derby team in my 20s, and not only being accepted as someone who was allowed to play, but being actively told that I was allowed to thrive. If I was going to win, my achievements weren't going to be discredited, they weren't going to be taken away from me. If I did well, that was okay, I would still be valid as a woman. I remember when I joined that roller derby team, they had a whole system where a more experienced skater would sort of mentor you as you started, and it was described as a big sister, little sister experience. It was your big sister, you're the little sister. And that was so validating for me as someone who was craving a sisterly bond, was craving being seen as who I was. I I got to be part of a family of women, and I got to experience something I'd never really experienced before, and that simple word choice made me so happy. These are the moments I try and hold on to. I remember being in my 20s, and for the first time being invited by a group of female friends to go for a girly sleepover. We watched silly films, we talked late into the night, and it was the first time I'd hung out with a group of female friends and not at some point in the day being told, okay, this is the part where it's just the girls hanging out and you have to leave now. That simple moment of feeling included, of just nothing needed to be said. I was welcome. I was one of the girls. It was such an important moment to me, of such a simple gesture, and it made me feel so close to those friends. These are the moments I try and hold on to. Moments of positivity, moments of joy that have come out of being who I am. Now, don't get me wrong. I know we have a lot of fighting left to do. I know that there's a lot that we haven't sorted yet. I know that we need to be loud about GRA reform. We need to protect the safety of black trans people. We need to make sure that more people treat non-binary people as valid. We need to protect the rights of trans sex workers. We need to protect the rights of trans children. There are so many groups and so many fights that we need to be having still. And I don't in any way mean to come across as saying that, forget about all that. Let's just be happy. But we need the world to know that we are happy. We have these fights going on, but our lives day to day are full of little happy moments that we wouldn't be having if we weren't who we are. So often these stories focus on, okay, you were a bit sad about this thing and now you're not. Okay, that's fine. You're at a nice default. No, we're happy. We're joyful people because we're getting to be who we are. And that's a thing I wish more people who weren't in our community understood.